This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
What's up, Detroit sports fans? Welcome to the Fan Reporter Show, made by fans for fans, powered by the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm Nick, and joining me today is Andrew's going to give us this week's topics.
Well, we're going to take a little bit of a break from Lions draft talk to talk some Pistons, and we're going to try to predict, well, not predict, but we're going to discuss what we think the future of this team in terms of the core will look like, and then maybe some Lions draft talk after. It's a Fan Report.
All right, well, the Pistons continue to win, despite our begging and pleading for them not to. They are getting production from guys who have no business giving them production.
You were so close.
I mean, they got trounced the other night, which was
sort of
good.
Executing the perfect tank.
Right. Like, they built the roster in a way that is meant to tank. And then they depleted any talent that was left. And you had this roster that was just, you honestly thought would struggle to win maybe 20 games. And then they go and trade some more of the talent that was actually winning games for us in DeLon Wright. And they still managed to win games. And it's all because of the rookies and a guy like Frank Jackson, who, in all reality, doesn't, like, on a good team, he's not even on the roster. On a mediocre team, he's not even on the roster. But all of a sudden, this dude's lights out.
He's playing his way onto the roster. Apparently.
Because now I'm starting to wonder, all right, what do we do with this guy? Because he's pretty damn good. I kind of like him.
But like last night in the Cavs game, like we were so close to executing that perfectly, the competitive loss where we were dominating the Cavs and then we blew a massive lead. But no, we had to come back and just clinch it at the end. We just had to. I understand the players are out there. I get it. I have blinders on for the top for guys like Cade Cunningham, Jalen Suggs, Jalen Green, Evan Mobley, and it's clouding my judgment of what I'm seeing on the floor for the Pistons.
You can't tell guys not to score and not to compete. Like, you can't tell players that, but you can build a roster in a way that it's just not going to win. And in all reality, that's what I thought they did. And they're now playing themselves out of a top 4 pick. They're winning games at. I mean, I'm not saying that they're a winning basketball team because this team will never win a damn thing, but not as constructed. Like,
I'm about to say, yeah,
not as the way it's constructed is what I mean. But they're playing just good enough basketball to not be one of the bottom 3 teams in the league, and that it's infuriating and frustrating. I mean, it's exciting because it's coming off of on the backs of the rookies, but it's still slightly infuriating. And some of the production they're getting is from guys who probably won't be on this roster in the next few years, or are guys that are borderline, but if we draft someone in their position, they probably won't be because of the fact that we drafted somebody to take that spot.
Yeah.
So there's a few names out there that would fall under that, but it's hard. It's honestly kind of hard to be a fan of the team right now because, like, you want to be excited about what they're doing and the fact that the rookies are showing a lot of promise and the young talent is showing up and showing that they're able to compete. But at the same time, you're like, okay, this is great, but stop. Stop, please. Maybe compete for 3 quarters and in the fourth quarter just fall off a cliff and just lose. I don't know. It's confusing and it's hard.
The Clippers game was perfect where we had.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was saying, like, the Clippers game was perfect where we had the lead for most of the game and then we let them come back and win at the very end. We blew it, and I'm like that's we showed we could beat them with just our rookies, and then we pulled back. It's guys like Frank Jackson coming in and going hard in the last 4 minutes of a basketball game, and just making us hold on to that W. That's really irritating me.
It's moderately annoying. It's moderately honestly, extremely annoying at times. Like, a game against the Cavs is a great example of a game that you really needed to lose. That is a bad basketball team in Cleveland that you really need to pick up games on them to help secure yourself a top spot in the draft. And they didn't. They lost the game to them. And by that, I mean they won. So in effect, they lose. If you're kind of picking up what I'm putting down. But like, I know it's hard to root against your team, especially when there is stuff to be excited about with your team. But they're not playing for anything. They're not. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to, if they did make the playoffs, which I don't think they're going to. I think the chances are very, very, very slim with the way the East is. They're not going to compete in the playoffs because the top of the East is so damn good. It's pointless. It helps get rookies experience and young guys experience, and it shows them the right way to win games, and you learn to play the game the right way to steal, a line from Larry Brown. But at the same time, you also have to understand what is best for the future of this organization, that they are still missing a number one guy, and that number one guy he can be found in this draft. There's arguably 2, maybe 3, or even 4 names in this draft that you can throw out there that can be the next superstar. Whether it be Cade Cunningham, which you've all but played yourself out of that. Granted, the lottery could help you. Or it could be Jalen Suggs. Or it could be Evan Mobley.
As long as you still land in the bottom 3, you have an equal shot.
Right. So if you're not going to be able to get a guy like that...
I've pretty much convinced myself on everyone but Kuminga.
Right. But if you're not going to be able to get a guy like that in the top, in the top 3 or 4 of this draft because you played yourself out of it, you are in effect hurting your organization in the long run. Yes, you still are probably going to end up with a really good talent at 5 or 6 or 7, but he's probably not going to. The odds are against you for him to turn out to be a superstar in this league. Just the way that things go now with the draft. And you can't really afford to set yourself back another year because you didn't get the guy you needed. Because, that's, from what I'm seeing with this team, that's kind of one of the key pieces that they're missing. That one of the, I can't say few, but it's the most glaring piece that they're missing is they don't have a guy that they can rely on night in, night out to be the number one player on the floor. There is not a single night never is there a night where the best player on the floor is on the Detroit Pistons right now. Regardless if it's a win or a loss, the best player on the floor is not a Detroit Piston. Sure, Jeremy Grant's been really good at times, for the most part even. But is there ever a night where you can say that he is the best player on the floor? I don't know that I can say that. Yeah. Sure, if you're playing OKC when they've got 8 guys active, yeah, that's different.
The problem is we somehow go deep, and that's the issue.
We do. And it has a lot to do with the fact that this team honestly really gels well together, especially the young guys. You got guys like Isaiah Stewart who are playing out of their damn minds. He is so much freaking fun to watch. He may be my favorite player on this team, not going to lie. And I know I dogged him a lot early on in the season, but man, has he been fun to watch.
Would we get fined by the NBA if we tried out a lineup in our next game? We ran Isaiah Stewart at the point, stuck Frank Jackson down the post at center, let Josh Jackson stay at the 3-point line where he is probably the worst at his worst.
I was going to say he's actually had some really good games, but not from outside. I think it would be every bit as glaring as the Rockets straight up just not scoring for like 40 points of a basketball game.
You know what? If they didn't get fined, then let's just do it. Let's just
see. They're just one of those cases where that team is so damn bad. They probably didn't do it on purpose. Like that's the thing with that team. But I don't know, man. Like it's. There is stuff to be excited about. And I am excited for the future of this team and watching these rookies play. And that's why they go so deep is because the way that they're playing together. And obviously Dwayne Casey is a fantastic coach, especially for player development. We saw it with Toronto and we're seeing it now. Do some of these guys have some off nights? Yes. Sadiq Bey, if he's not shooting the ball well, he does tend to struggle. Or Jeremy Grant, if he's not playing well, the team tends to struggle. But for the most part, these young players, these young assets are showing up. And they're guys that this team relies on. Not just as someone who's a spark plug or just adds, some value or some production. No, these guys are the focal point of the team right now. And that's what's so exciting about it is because this is a situation where, hey, we got something we can build around here. And if next year we, by luck of the draw, we do get Cade Cunningham, and next year we trotted out a lineup that featured Cade Cunningham, Sadiq Bey, Jeremy Grant, and Isaiah Stewart. I'll tell you right now, we ain't that far from competing with that. We ain't that far from competing with that kind of lineup, just from what I'm seeing right now. Then you also have Killian Hayes. If Frank Jackson continues to perform at the level he has, you got Josh Jackson, who's shown up in a lot of ways, especially when Jeremy Grant is out or not performing. That's the other thing, is that you're seeing guys step up when the team is facing adversity by losing their best player. And sure, it hurts a little bit to see because we don't want that right now. Like it's frustrating.
It's just I thought once we started seeing Jeremy Grant, I'm like, all right, full tank mode. Like, yes, these rookies might play well, but there's no way they play well enough to win games. And
you could argue teams have actually played better.
we have Sadiq Bey going 6 for 6 and a quarter from 3-point range. We have
Frank Jackson putting up 18, 19, and 20 in 3 games in a 4-night period.
We have Beef Stew pulling down 22 boards. But that perfectly leads us into our topic, where I basically want to gauge where we're at with the non-rookie players on this roster, and because I think we all agree that the 4 rookies that Troy Weaver drafted are very likely going to be part of our core moving forward. But I want to make it difficult and ask, who are 3 players outside of these rookies that you envision as part of this team moving forward into the future, as part of this core squad that you can maybe make a championship team with them on there?
Ooh. 3 guys that I can see being a part of this team in the future that are not rookies. Okay, so I'm going to take one right away and say no to him, just because of what I have seen from somebody else on this roster, and that's Mason Plumlee. He's been a nice piece. He's been really solid. I don't think he's a guy that we really need, considering what we've gotten out of Isaiah Stewart, and the backup center position can be filled elsewhere. So I'm going to take him off my list. So if I had to take 3 guys that are not rookies.
Not to mention, I'm pretty sure he doesn't line up age-wise with the
right
with our window.
I think right? Jeremy Grant is a given at this point. I'd probably say he's almost a guarantee.
So you don't think he gets traded at some point? You think he's here
I
for the long
think he is, as of right now, part of the Pistons' future, yes.
Okay.
I think he is. They want him to be a part of this team for the future. So I'm going to put him in there. The other names that I would honestly throw up there, and I have to remove one, but the other 3 guys that I would say, and there's only 3 of them I would say I really have a good shot of being a part of the future of this franchise, are Josh Jackson, Frank Jackson, and Hamidou Diallo. I think those 4 names are the only 4 names I would say are have a really good shot to be a future piece of this franchise. And it is actually, I would argue that a lot of it is going to hinge upon the development of Killian Hayes and what they get in this draft. Because if you get a point guard, you may not have a need for Frank Jackson in the future. If you get a wing, you may not have a need for Hamidou Diallo in the future or Josh Jackson.
But here's the thing with a guy like Frank Jackson, he has point guard size, yes, but his play style, we've seen him thriving at the off guard position at the 2. I wonder, if you, let's say you did draft a point guard, let's say we got lucky, we got Cade Cunningham. I don't think it's that unfeasible to say you could see Frank Jackson playing the 2 alongside Cade Cunningham.
No, I wouldn't think so either.
Because they can switch defensively. Cade could take the 2 guard, and Frank could take the point guard defensively.
They could, because Cade is a little bit bigger than Frank Jackson, no doubt about it.
Quite a bit.
Quite a bit, I guess. Yes, quite a bit. So, there is that aspect, and that would actually be a big game changer, is if you did get someone with the kind of size like Cade Cunningham that would allow you to keep a guy like Frank Jackson on this roster if you got someone of the size of Cade Cunningham. Because running a lineup of Killian Hayes and Frank Jackson together, your backcourt defense is going to be pretty piss poor. Full-on Portland Trailblazers backcourt defense that gives up 100 points to guards. And that just doesn't seem to me like the way that Dwayne Casey wants to play the game. Even when he was with Toronto, if I recall, granted Fred VanVleet was still fairly young, really young, in fact. If I recall, when Dwayne Casey was there, Van Vliet came off the bench primarily, so not when Lowry was in. Yep. So you really didn't see as much of both Lowry and Van Vliet on the floor together. Versus now, you see it all the time. But different coach, different philosophies. So I don't know that if you went and got or like say Jalen Suggs, for example, that would almost render a guy like Frank Jackson almost obsolete. Or, but Cade Cunningham is a little bit of a different example, just because of the fact he doesn't decide.
Suggs can play the 1, but I'd personally prefer to keep him at the 2 if we had him.
Now that would open up the door for Frank Jackson to play the bench point guard role. It would. But again, you'd still have a little bit of that size problem because Jalen Suggs isn't big by any means. He's 6'4". That's not huge. Yeah. Jalen Green, it does have a little bit more size though, so that would make up for that. But
so right now I'm hearing definitively Jeremy Grant.
Yes.
And then he said you're between Josh Jackson, Hamidou Diallo, and Frank Jackson yes. for those last 2 spots.
And just based on what I'm seeing, it seems to me more like Josh Jackson's going to be a trade piece than someone who's going to be a part of this franchise in the future because he really showcases him a lot when Jeremy Grant's not there. And I have a feeling that Hamidou Diallo, Troy Weaver didn't go get Diallo just to get rid of him.
No, I agree.
Troy Weaver, he was a part of drafting him. He obviously wanted Diallo as a part of the future of this franchise, so I think Diallo is probably here to stay.
And we'll get that answer this offseason.
Exactly, exactly. And Josh Jackson, I think, is someone that is more of a trade piece for this team in the future. So I probably lean Hamidou Diallo, Frank Jackson, and Jeremy Grant. But don't sleep on Josh Jackson being a part of the future of this franchise because he's really kind of shown up in big spots in a lot of these games. Also struggled, but has shown up in a lot of these games as well.
Yeah, the interesting thing with Josh Jackson, too, it's like you see so many glimpses of why he was a top pick a couple years ago coming out of Kansas. But what the issue is, and what I know Casey harps on and what's kind of held him back in the past, outside of the inefficient shooting from outside, is it's just the lack of playmaking from him. He can score. There's no doubt he can score, but he too often gets tunnel vision and he'll miss a wide open outlet pass, just trying to barrel his way towards the rim. And so like part of me wants to say that if he can pick that up, which it's time is running out in development for Josh Jackson, but if he can pick that up as part of his game, I do see him convincing Troy Weaver that, hey, I think we should keep him around because now he's finally blossoming. And the question is, if he can't pick that up, it's almost more detrimental than it is positive because it wouldn't mesh. His play style would not mesh as well with, I think, the style of team we're building here.
And it's very possible he keeps all 4 of these guys. And I'd honestly lean it's almost likely he keeps all 4 of these guys because while yes, there's not exactly a lot of size in that group, but Jeremy Grant can move over to the 4 in a small ball situation. You can have Diallo play on a wing. Obviously, that's what he does. Josh Jackson also plays in a 2 or a 3 type position. So some of these guys have maneuverability. And you'll probably go find yourself a center. I mean, in my opinion, for the Pistons, outside of Cade Cunningham, like the dream scenario, honestly, for me, is getting Evan Mobley. And the reason I say that is because he's got such versatility in this game.
Come around on Evan.
I have. I like the way he played in the tournament quite a bit. Yeah. But he's got some versatility in the way you can use him because he's able to step outside. He can handle the ball. He can move, and he's got great mobility and ability for his size. You don't necessarily have to play him at the 5, and you can keep Isaiah Stewart down low. Even though he's an undersized big, he's still a big by every sense of the mean, by every sense of the word. And you can move Mobley to the 4, and then you've got your starting lineup with Jeremy Grant at the 3, where he should be. So I mean, you've got options with a guy like Evan Mobley, which honestly creates more room for guys like Diallo, Jackson, and Jackson to remain on this team in the future. You know, it frees up that space a little bit versus if you were to get a Jalen Green or Jalen Suggs or a Cade Cunningham, one of those guys probably isn't going to be a part of the future of this franchise, or if they are, they're deep end of the bench just because there's not enough room in those positions anymore. You create a logjam. So getting a guy like Evan Mobley would allow you to keep these guys, because I do like all those guys. I really do. I think they've got talent. They're obviously very young, and I think they can be a part of the future of this franchise.
I'm right there with you on Jeremy Grant, Hamidou Diallo. I believe that both are Weaver, prototypical Troy Weaver guys, and both are guys I like a lot. I liked Hamidou Diallo before he got here. I like him even more since he's been here. It's kind of getting old having to talk about the wing that needs to develop a jumper, but I feel like there's something different about Diallo because he's so much more agile, explosive than a guy like, let's say, Stanley Johnson was,
right,
while still getting it done on defense.
Right. So like, Stanley Johnson wasn't even doing that. So
yeah, like Diallo isn't reliant on a jumper to score. However, it'd be nice to have that in his arsenal. I really like Diallo. I think
to have that in anybody's arsenal.
Yeah, I definitely think that he sticks around. I think we re-sign him this offseason. Jeremy Grant, I think he's going to be the centerpiece.
I think he's your veteran leadership on this team.
Yep,
he's your veteran
whoever
leader
you draft.
Right.
Hopefully, along with whoever you draft.
Well, I mean, that player's not going to be your vet leader. He's just going to be your star.
Yeah, but I was saying I think Jeremy going to be the centerpiece of the squad along with that guy. Where I struggle is, and I'm looking at the same two guys you are. It's Frank Jackson, Josh Jackson. Tyler Cook comes in off the radar for me. Like, he'll have a good game. Like, I can really see him being part of this. He's
a little bit of an
future.
interesting piece.
And then all of a sudden, like, he disappears for a game, and I'm like, whatever. What about what happened to Tyler Cook?
I think he's just kind of a nice story. I don't know that he's actually a part of the future of this franchise. If he is, it's like an end of the bench type rotation guy.
Yeah.
Like someone you throw for foul trouble minutes or end of game situations when it's not close. You know, he's one of those guys, one of the 10, 11, 12th guy. He's like the 11th or 12th man on your roster, basically. Yeah. So he could be around in the future. I just don't think he's a part of the focal point of the future of this franchise, of this team.
So I'm going to go with as much as this guy has been annoying me since we got him, it's got to be Frank Jackson, because you're talking about a 22-year-old who's shooting over 40% from three-point land. That's not a guy you just let walk. That's a guy that sticks around. It's just annoying that it's hurting our tank right now.
I do think it is hinged upon what you get in the draft, though. I really do, because if you grab yourself,
worst comes to worst, he's a bench 3-point sniper, basically.
Yeah, but then you look at other. What do we do with Saban Lee, or what do we do with some of the other guards on this team that potentially would be in that spot? So
Saban Lee is like a polar opposite player of Frank Jackson.
He is absolutely he is, but it's minutes that would be taken away from a guy like that just because they both played point guard. Even though Frank Jackson does play a little bit more off ball, but I don't know. I mean, I definitely think Frank Jackson it can be a part of this team in the future, and the way he's played, I have no reason to believe otherwise. I mean, he's at least in the last few games been more consistent than just about anybody on this roster.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that neither of us mentioned our two draft picks from last year in Sekou Doumbouya and Davidas Servidis.
I thought we traded for Servidis.
No, he was our second round pick. I think we traded up to get him in the draft.
Right. I just don't think Troy Weaver or Dwayne Casey really has. They're not Weaver's draft picks, and I don't think he's too enamored by either one of them. Obviously,
neither am I.
So I've been saying it all along. I think this is kind of the end of the road for Sekou Doumbouya on this team. Yeah. I do.
There's one play that sticks out to me with Servidis. He was standing at the 3-point line with Josh Jackson at the top of the 3-point line. He was standing more on the elbow. Servidis was. So I can't remember where Servidis' defender went, but Servidis' defender slacked off him a good 6-7 feet, and Josh Jackson's getting doubled. He's about to make the outlet pass to a wide open Servidis on the elbow. For some reason, Servidis decides, I'm going to cut to where the defender is instead of staying where I'm open. And the play turns to a turnover. And you can see Josh Jackson was just pissed. That's
just a guy who doesn't have, he doesn't have the mental part of the game there. And that could be from a lack of minutes or instinct. Right. He doesn't have the instinct for the game. Yeah. And maybe because of a lack of play time or lack of, playing with these guys in particular, but you got to know. If nobody's near you, you stay where you are and you call for the ball, and then you get ball and you shoot ball. Yeah. And you better make those shots.
Not cut to the defender.
No, that is not what you want to do.
But he's a guy that's I've not seen him do anything of value outside of shoot the ball. He can shoot, no denying that, but he's not brought anything of value to actually warrant keeping on the roster. He really doesn't do anything else at all.
We've also got a decent amount of guys in this team that are going to be shooting the ball.
Exactly.
So
I think I'm right there with you on the same three guys: Jeremy Grant, Hamidou Diallo, Frank Jackson, for the reasons I laid out. Again, this is not us saying that we don't think guys like Josh Jackson or maybe even DSJ or Tyler Cook won't be part of this team's future. It's if we had to place a bet on three guys, these are three guys we place a bet on. Obviously, it could be more than them. But
I straight up don't think DSJ will be on this roster in the future. I think DSJ is gone after this year.
It's unfortunate he didn't really have much because his first few games were stellar, and then he just
got
the
hurt.
Injury / health bug. And
but other guys have honestly stepped up and taken over the role. I mean, Saban Lee has showed a lot of promise this season and also struggled at times, but he's really young. Frank Jackson, another guy, took that spot. Killian Hayes is back. I mean, there's just no room for a guy like DSJ, especially if we're going to be drafting a guard in the offseason. So it's just no room for a guy like DSJ on this roster, in my opinion.
Now, keeping in the same boat, basically, James Edwards, there at The Athletic, put out an article ranking all the 24 and under players on our roster. And for those of you keeping kind of home, that's 11 people. We have 11 guys on our roster that are 24 or under. So, Nick, basically, I wanted to get your ranking, and I want to see if you agree with James, or if you're super off, then I can give you my ranking as well after. But
so, just out of curiosity, what is he basing it off? Is he basing it off of potential? What you think they're going to be? Basing it off their play this year alone? Basing it off of, where you think they are in terms of talent level and production now? What are we basing it off of here?
Here's a direct quote from his article. The criteria is simple. What has the player shown so far? What upside does the player possess?
All right, so it's both. I like it. All right. So, do you want me to give my ranking before you give me James Edwards and yours?
Yeah, because I want to see how close you get to it.
Okay.
If you line up with us pretty closely, or if we guys divert.
All right. Then number one, I'm going to throw Sadiq Bey right up at the top.
Oh, so you're going from 1 to all right.
Oh, no. Sorry. Yeah, you know what? I'll go 11. I'll go 11 up. That's way better way to do this. All right, number 11.
It's better podcasting.
Yes, I'll do number 11. I'll do Davidas Servidis.
Okay. I'm in agreement with you there.
He's just shown me nothing.
Yep.
And it's not, he just doesn't get the opportunity, and I don't think, in all honesty, he doesn't have enough skill sets to really impress. He's a shooter and a shooter only, and he doesn't even really get shoot that much because he doesn't play that much, so he's at the bottom. Number 10, I'm going Sekou Doumbouya.
I think I'm in agreement there as well. Is
probably the biggest disappointment on this roster, in my opinion, because he did have high upside at one point. We've even seen some flashes of it, in all honesty. Like we've seen him showcase some ability, but he just hasn't seemed to been able to get it together and produce any kind of consistency. And for that reason, it's kind of pushed him out of the lineup altogether. And I know he's only 20 years old, but he's on his third year?
Second year.
This is
second year.
Yep. So and with the way that some of these younger guys have performed, time may be at least starting to end for Sekou Doumbouya. At the very least, he isn't going to be a part of the future rotation of this franchise. Because of his youth, they may keep him around just as like a end of the bench situation, or a guy that maybe move to the G League and bring back up. I don't know. But he hasn't showcased anything to really give me a reason to believe in him right now.
Yeah, so basically, like it's his value is purely in potential, and because he's shown very few flashes in his time so far of actual productivity. So basically you're saying his value is almost all in potential, and as of right now, you don't see that potential being that high anyways to rank him any higher than number 10.
Right.
Okay.
Number 9, I am going to go DSJ.
Okay.
Actually, no. I'm going to go Tyler Cook here.
Tyler Cook here?
Yeah, I'm going to go Tyler Cook here. Like, he's given the Pistons some good minutes, but I don't see a ton of upside and major potential with Tyler Cook. I just see him as kind of an end-of-the-bench rotation type guy forever, and he's going to be one of the more solid ones. But I don't see it being a guy who's going to be a rotational piece at all in the future for this team. So ahead of him, I'm going to go with DSJ here. The upside, again, this is another guy where the upside is big, but you're starting to run out of time with DSJ, and he's not been able to carve out any type of consistent minutes for a reason on this team. He's been outperformed by younger players in a lot of ways. So that's why DSJ falls where he does for me on this list. Again, the upside's there. I just haven't seen it yet. This is where it starts to get hard.
It gets dicey here.
This is where it starts to get really hard. This may surprise you. I'm going to go Frank Jackson here.
Okay.
I haven't seen enough yet. I've seen splashes. And now, mind you, there is a big gap between DSJ and Frank Jackson in my mind. Like, you're talking a totally different tier of young talent for me on this list. But Frank Jackson has shown a ton of promise. But he's already almost exceeded what I thought his upside was. So I just don't know how much upside is still there. And that kind of knocks it back a little bit.
Okay.
I think Frank Jackson still can develop and be a good player and be a part of the future of this team, but I've also seen some inconsistency, and I've also seen a guy who almost falls asleep some nights or doesn't warrant being on the floor.
Yeah, you have the issue, Frank. You have that size issue with Frank Jackson where he's best suited at the two, but he's not that great at defending twos. Like, he's a decent defender. He's not a bad defender, but at 6'3" defending twos, you need to be better than good. Like, in terms of your defense, right. And that's part of my knock on Frank Jackson. He's proven me wrong by being much more of a contributor on the offensive end than I thought he would be able to be. So there's that. But no, I don't disagree with you here.
Next, I'm gonna go Saben Lee. Okay. And if we had done this list a month ago, he'd be a lot higher. But he hasn't really been as effective in recent weeks. He's honestly on some nights not even gotten any kind of run because he does make mistakes in the floor, and Dwayne Casey is a guy who will sit a young guy down to coach him when they make mistakes, and Saben Lee at times does make a lot of them. And so he does have a lot of inconsistency, and again, he's another guy that at times I thought exceeded his upside and his expectations, so I don't know how much is actually there. But I do think Saben Lee has been a really fun player to watch this year. He's been a very surprising bright spot, and for that reason he's going to be ahead of some of these other guys in this list, and I like watching Saben Lee play, and I do want him to be a part of the future of this team. Yeah,
and the thing with Saben Lee for me, like I've been loving what he's been doing on offense. He's ahead of the curve in terms of his core vision on what level he's doing on defense. He's been ahead of the curve in terms of his core vision on the offensive side of the ball. It's the complete lack of scoring on that. Like, even his jumper looks weird too. Like, it's not just it doesn't go in; it looks weird. Like, so that's the part that probably knocks Saben Lee down a few pegs for me. Is yes, I think he can run the offense. I think he can do a really good job of defending. It's just I don't see any semblance of being a scoring threat at all.
Agree. Next, I'm going Josh Jackson.
All right.
He's really shown at times an ability to kind of command the ball on the floor and play every position you ask him to. He can run, he can control the ball in an ISO, he can, slash to the hoop. He does, as you mentioned, struggle to find that open man when he does get some kind of penetration, but when you really need him to on some nights, he's able to be the number one guy for you. And he's shown that ability, especially in Jeremy Grant's absences. He does come with a lot of inconsistencies and some detractors, though. He like you said, struggles to find the open man. He's not a very good outside shooter, right? But he does play some solid defense, and he is a kind of a spark plug. He's an energizer out there, and that's why I still think I've loved Josh Jackson for a long time. I think his potential is huge in this league, and I think there's still a lot that's untapped. And if he can find a way to tap into that potential, you could be looking at a really big-time player in Josh Jackson, whether or not it's for the Pistons. I still believe that Josh Jackson could be a big-time player in this league.
And I remember he was one of the guys. He was one of a long list of guys I thought was going to be the next best thing coming out of college.
Yep, absolutely.
I remember I was a huge fan of his at Kansas, and I remember I was considering in that same draft. I was considering Justin Jackson just because his name was close to Josh Jackson.
Next, I've got Hamidou Diallo.
Okay,
another guy who's really explosive and exciting, can be a spark plug, but he also plays good defense as well. And Diallo, again, this is a guy that has always had a ton of potential, and Troy Weaver obviously likes him. Mm-hmm. And so for that reason, not just for that reason alone, but for that reason, I also believe in him. If Troy Weaver believed in him enough to go get him from the team that he drafted him on, something's up there. And I think Diallo is a really exciting prospect. I think he's a guy that has a lot of talent, and I'd love to see his development here on this team. After Diallo, I've got Killian Hayes as at number 3. He's one that coming into the season would have been number 1, but with the injury to no fault of his own, and also with the fact that he really has very much struggled to find his jump shot. Even though it looks good, it's not falling. It's at times does come out a little bit flat, but he hasn't found that jump shot, and that's going to be something that's very imperative that he gets. He's got to find that jump shot if he wants to be successful in this league. If you're a point guard, especially on a team that's being built the way it is, he's going to be a big focal point of the offense, and they need him to be able to hit those jumpers when they ask him to, especially from outside. So, Killian Hayes, again, he's at times got to slow down and allow the game to come to him, and at times got to go after it and attack the game and be assertive.
Yeah.
And he's got to understand when to do each. And that's the part that I don't really think he's quite gotten down yet. But again, he hasn't had enough time to really adapt. So I like Killian Hayes, and I love his potential. We just haven't gotten to see enough of him just yet.
No, and I agree. And I'll go as far as say is that the last game, the Cleveland game, was one of the – I think it's the closest he's gotten, like to me at least, of actually knowing when to attack, when to pull back, and basically picking his spots on offense if he is going to end up shooting the ball. He actually shot really well. I believe he shot 60% in that game. And he was picking his spots very well early on in the game. And then in the fourth quarter, towards the end, he went on the attack and was attacking the rim, which is something I haven't seen him do often. And I like the result. And obviously the playmaking is still there. He's still making really good passes, finding open mans I don't know how he's seeing. So
absolutely.
But
now we're jumping into another tier in my book in terms of the under 24 guys to a group that I will call they've so far exceeded expectations that I've had to raise what I thought their upside was.
The NBA all-rookie team?
Pretty much, yes. Number 2, I've got Isaiah Stewart, and it's more like 1 and 1A, but number 2, I've got Isaiah Stewart. His level of play is just, like I said, he's probably my favorite player on this team right now. His level of play is not only exciting, but it's also, for the most part, pretty damn consistent. He's exactly what you want him. Like, he's a spark plug. He's an energizer. He's a leader on both sides of the ball. He is an agitator on defense. He's electric on the boards. There's not enough good things you can say about this guy. Oh, by the way, he can also step outside a little bit.
Yeah.
So, and when a guy at his size, his position, and his age is able to step outside a little bit, it's only going to get better from there. And I am so excited to see him continue to develop that part of his game. Because I straight up think he'll be lethal. If he gets straight up a consistent jump shot from outside, that's lethal.
So, boy, were we wrong in our...
My God. I don't think... I'll be straight up with you. I don't think I've ever been more wrong about a player coming into the season.
Like, I completely... I remember in our post-draft podcast, I had said that he is... I compared him to Jason Maxiell, and I said he's a traditional center in a post-traditional NBA. And
also undersized.
Plays below the rim, undersized, but he is a high-energy guy. In some ways... That was true, but very minimal. like
he takes everything Jason Maxiell did, but he does it so well.
Exactly, and he can do more than Jason Maxiell did.
He makes it work in a game where, the way he plays in a lot of ways shouldn't work, but he makes it work. And whereas you say, he puts up a lot of similar numbers to Andre Drummond, why didn't you like Drummond? because the way he plays basketball is winning basketball. Drummond was a lot of empty stats.
Yep.
Isaiah Stewart actually produces. And, oh, by the way, plays really solid defensively.
Let's put it this way. I don't think Drummond would be putting up Isaiah Stewart's numbers if Drummond was 6'9".
No, I don't either. And also with like the amount of hustle that's that's Beef Stew has is just awesome to watch too. But like you have in Isaiah Stewart, and it's way too early to say this, and I know he doesn't even hold the flame to him just yet or hold the candle to him just yet. But this is the closest thing you've had to Ben Wallace in ever.
Yep.
This is the closest thing I think this league has seen to Ben Wallace.
And I love that it's on the Pistons again.
I do too. Like. I love watching him play, man.
So here, I don't think I've ever rooted for a player more.
I may just have to buy an Isaiah Stewart jersey.
For real. I don't think I've ever rooted for a player more than in the Clippers game where Isaiah Stewart was starting and sitting courtside was Ben Wallace.
Oh,
and I'm
yes.
like, please show out. Please show out.
It's so much damn fun to watch him play.
Do you understand if I was at that game at LCA, I probably would have been looking at Ben Wallace's reaction more than I was actually looking at the game. Like did he see that? Man. Did he see that play?
It's fun as hell to watch him play. He honestly may be the player that gets me the most excited on this team. And it maybe it just has to do with the fact that I feel a little bit of nostalgia when I watch him play. But man, I love it. I do. I
guys
love
like
it.
Isaiah Stewart that remind me why I'm not an NBA GM.
Props to Troy Weaver for finding it, and not only finding it, but trading up to get it. Trading up for the second time to get it.
Yeah.
Like
that was the first trade up. We got him before Sadiq.
You're right. We did get him before Sadiq. You're right. So, guys like
that was the pick I wanted us to take Sadiq.
Right. Getting guys like Isaiah Stewart and Sadiq Bey give me so much hope and give me so much of a reason to believe in Troy Weaver as GM of this organization for sure. Mm-hmm. But rounding it out at number 1, I've got Sadiq Bey. Yes, I know he's inconsistent, but when he's on,
he's been pretty consistent lately.
He's on. When he's on, he's so on. And it's, I know it's mostly his jump shot that it's the big key piece of his offense that if it's not there, it's really not working. But lately he's shown other ways to score as well. He plays good defense. Like Sadiq Bey is awesome. Like he straight up is awesome. And I think what Sadiq Bey could end up being, and I know we've mentioned it on this show in the past, but I think he's actually a better scoring Robert Covington. Like he has all the tools of Robert Covington, but he's a better scorer.
I'm really starting to think I'm undercutting him with that initial Robert Covington comparison.
Are we starting to float into the Kawhi Leonard range, please, or Jimmy Butler range? Come on, please, just bring it out.
I mean, he's now shown propensity to like an ability to attack the basket a little more of a variety of ways. I would obviously need to see a lot more of that before I pull out the Jimmy Butler, Kawhi Leonard comparisons. Right. But I mean, the baby steps are the little seeds are there. I'm not gonna lie,
they are. And watching guys like Sadiq Bey and Isaiah Stewart really give you hope for the future of this team. Mm-hmm. They really do. Because those are pieces we have to build around, and I am happy building around those two guys right there. We just need a number 1.
Here's the best thing I can say about Sadiq too. Like, I watch guys like Isaiah Stewart, Killian Hayes. If I didn't know anything about this team and I was watching the game, I would be able to tell that Killian Hayes was a rookie. Isaiah Stewart, although he plays really well, plays hard, I'd be able to tell he's a rookie because he does make rookie mistakes.
He does.
I would think Sekou Boy was a rookie and was in the second year.
I think Sekou Boy is there a high school player on the floor?
I would have thought,
because he looks like it.
I would have thought that Sadiq Bey was the veteran leader along with Jeremy Grant on this team. If I hadn't known who he was. And I mean, he has veteran poise as a rookie.
In all fairness, he is older than a lot of these rookies. He's 22, so he does have that experience and that maturity there, but he's a rookie, and he doesn't play like one at all.
No. It's weird to me.
Me too, but it's really nice to have.
Yeah.
I think Bey actually will be a really big time leader of this team in the future. I think it'll be him, Grant, whoever they get this year as the 3 leaders, with Isaiah Stewart kind of being the energizer, the Rashid of the team almost. the Energizer. And I love it. I do. There's a lot to be excited about there.
And believe it or not, you exactly got what my ranking is. The only one I had different was I had Saban Lee and Frank Jackson switch. So you have Frank Jackson at 7 and Saban Lee at 6.
Okay.
I had Frank Jackson at 6 and Saban Lee at 7, but that's it.
Okay. I think the only reason I gave Saban Lee the bump ahead of him was because we drafted him. We spent draft capital on him.
And if we're going on potential, I think I think there can be a really solid argument to be made to have Saban Lee above Frank Jackson if we're going about potential. Because I don't see where else Frank Jackson can go from where he's at, even though he is still young. That's why I see him as
that's the hardest thing for me with Frank Jackson is because I don't know what this guy's potential is. One, I didn't scout him in college. I didn't watch the guy. I don't remember him in college, and I wasn't paying attention to him pre-draft. So, I have no idea what this guy's potential actually is. And for all I know, he, bounced around between the Pelicans and their G League affiliate for 3 years. So he can't be that good and can't have that much potential because they didn't give him an opportunity. So the fact that right there makes me just, what is this guy's potential? Has he reached it? Is this what it is? Or is it higher? So, and that kind of is what knocked him down a little bit because Saban Lee, I do see a lot of potential with, and there is a lot, and I know what it is because, I learned about him. So maybe it's a little inherent bias, but still.
All right, are you guys ready here? James Edwards ranking. You agreed on number 11, Davidas Servidis.
Okay.
Number 10, he had Tyler Cook, where you had him number 9.
Not at all. Not really all that surprised by that. Based on potential. Again, I don't see Tyler Cook as much potential. I think I just hold a little bit of a grudge against Sekou.
Number 9, he had DSJ, who you have.
Okay, a little bit surprising there, but all right. Again, I can see it, though. I can see it with the upside for Sekou. He is only 20. I'm probably being unfair to him.
Still going the same order. His number 8 was your number 7, Frank Jackson.
What? All right, now I'm curious. How much potential he think this Sekou Doumbouya kid got?
Now at number 7, he's got Sekou Doumbouya.
Okay, so this is entirely a potential.
Yeah, I can tell you what he says.
Ranking.
He says Doumbouya is still the biggest project on this team, despite being in year 2. In his short career, he's tended to take a step forward and then 1.5 steps back. Doumbouya displays moments of intrigue and progress, but most notably this season, his feel for attacking the basket, but still doesn't have anything he can hang his hat on. The good news from Doumbouya, though, is that the Pistons aren't in any rush, and if they choose to, they can be patient with the Frenchman. Through the duration of his rookie deal, he is still very, very raw. So he's saying he's seen some glimpses of his like, and he's still raw enough where he thinks there's a lot of potential to be tapped into. But
that's fair enough. And I can, and again, same argument against Frank Jackson here. We don't know what his potential actually is.
Yep.
So there may not be much there. Versus Sekou, I do think there is still a lot of potential. I've just not seen the other side of it where, all right, where's the steak? We got the sizzle. Where's the steak?
Yep. Now, his number 6 was your number 5, Josh Jackson.
All right.
His number 4 was your number 6, Saban Lee.
All right. So I'm in the same ballpark.
Sorry, his number 6 was your number. Anyway, we're at number 4 now. I skipped the number.
So Saban Lee's is number 5.
Yeah. Right. Josh Jackson's number 6.
Yep.
So you guys you had Josh Jackson at 5, Lee at 6, guys. Lee at 5, Josh Jackson at 6. Number 4, Hamidou Diallo.
Okay, we're dead on there.
So you guys are pretty much lockstep. You have a couple guys switched, but the big one's Sekou Doumbouya. That's it.
Yeah.
Other than that, you guys are pretty much lockstep so far. Now, instead of 1, 2, 3, he has 2A and 2B here. 2B is beef stew.
Oh, come on, man.
With 2A being Killian Hayes. And then his number 1, you guys are in agreement. I think we're all in agreement. Sadiq Bey.
So his list pretty much is much more potential biased than it is what we've actually seen this year.
Yeah.
Because if it was based on what we've actually seen this year, I think Josh Jackson would be a little bit higher. I also don't think Sekou Doumbouya would be as high. I try to be as even and fair as possible. I think I may be a little unfair to Sekou Doumbouya, but again, I think it's because I hold a little bit of a grudge against him because I so badly wanted him to be good. I just never saw it.
No, I'm right there with you with Sekou Doumbouya. I'm right there with you. And because I remember pre-draft, I wasn't too high on Sekou, and I had to but I also didn't think that Saku would be there at 9. So like I had like these conflicting opinions. Like this wasn't the guy I loved in the first place, but sitting here at 9, it's hard to argue not taking him. So I remember during the draft, I'm like, all right, Saku's available. I think we take him here. And we did. And I was happy.
Right.
But
I don't know.
that.
I
want him to do well. I want him to prove me wrong.
He's still super young, but it's it's second year in the league. I was hoping we'd see a step up, and we haven't. We've seen a step back in all reality. Time's starting to run out, and I guess I can't really say time's starting to run out because this team still isn't close to winning. But it depends on who we get in this draft. If we end up getting a guy that's a really high level player like a Cade Cunningham, we may be a year or two ahead of the curve, ahead of the rebuild than we thought.
Yeah, just say your nightly prayer to the lottery gods,
seriously,
and hope they answer them. Come lottery day. Please
give a frozen envelope with the Pistons name on it in that rotating drum.
I'm getting the like I said, I still feel like, and I've been feeling this for a few months now, that the Rockets are going to get the #1 pick.
It's not even a question anymore, but yes.
I'm getting an increasing feeling that we're going to find ourselves outside the top 5.
We're going to end up by luck of the lottery. Maybe we may end up seeing ourselves pick number 7 again.
I can see ourselves finishing 4.
And pick 6.
And then move to 6 or 7.
Yeah, I can see that. It happens to Detroit teams all the time. Look at the Wings. Yeah. Look at the Red Wings. Mm-hmm. So quickly, let's move on to our final topic of the night. Article. It's switching over to the football side, talking about the Lions here and the Lions draft in particular. MLive article by Kyle Meinke using quotes from Dan Orlovsky. So former Lions quarterback Dan Orlovsky says he expects the Lions to go big in the first round of the NFL draft, not pretty. And by that he means he expects the Lions to draft linemen as opposed to a skill position like quarterback or running or wide receiver or something along those lines.
So you're telling me he believes that Penei Sewell will be there at 7, and that the Lions.
There's other names in Penei Sewell. Rashawn Slater is a big name that's been floated around with the Lions in particular, and he fits a little bit more to what the Lions need than Penei Sewell does. I just think Penei Sewell is just an elite prospect. And, he says the draft is top heavy on offense. There are a lot of quarterbacks at the top end of this draft as well. You could see as many as 4, maybe even 5 taken in the top 10. But he says, and here's the quote from him, he says, just a gut feeling because of who their general manager is and where he comes from and how the Rams rebuilt their football team, which was the defensive line and the offensive line. And then Coach Dan Campbell, and knowing Dan and having played with Dan and kind of knowing how he's wired, I would imagine that they're doing whatever they can to impact the bigs on either side. Whether that's sitting at 7 and taking, I don't know if it's Penei Sewell or Rashawn Slater, whether that's trading out. That's one of the teams I think New England probably is in conversation with for a quarterback, but I think they would want to impact both sides of the football big-wise before they ever start to entertain the pretty part of football, which is the skill position guys. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts, but I kind of agree with it a little bit here because I kind of agree with I agree with the philosophy of you build from the inside out. That's my number one philosophy of building through the draft. 2, skill position players aren't going to necessarily help you right now because you're not really ready to win and you have holes in the trenches. And if you have holes in the trenches, not good things happen. And just the way that the Lions have to kind of rebuild this roster, you do kind of want to do it from the inside out. And skill position guys, yes, they're nice and they're great to have and you need them. But when this team's ready to win, those skill position guys you got this year are going to be nearing the end of their deals and you're going to have to pay them if you want to keep them, or you're going to have to start all over with skill positions. So when it comes to also on top of that, this year in particular, I don't know how much I really trust the scouting reports of some of these skill position guys because of the fact that we didn't really get to see a regular season from them. We didn't get to see them actually play. I trust the scouting reports on linemen a little bit better because when it comes to playing in their conference, they're playing against guys that are their size, their speed, their skill, and you get a better scouting report on an offensive or defensive lineman in a season like this than you would a skill position. Where strength and mobility are more of what you look for, and technique are more of what you look for than, flashiness, so to speak. And getting guys like Penei Sewell or Rashawn Slater and building there, I mean, you can't go wrong with that. It's a position of need. You need a right tackle. You need to shore up the right side of that line. And if you add Penei Sewell or Rashawn Slater to that line, and you have the left side as solid as it is, and you find yourself a guard somewhere, you have a really good offensive line, and the teams that have really good offensive lines tend to be pretty damn good in this league.
No, I don't disagree. And while I do agree that, yeah, a guy like Penei Sewell, and he can even consider Rashawn Slater, but a guy like Penei Sewell, yes, it's never a flashy pick when you're picking a lineman. That's just the nature of the position.
No, I mean, we've done it, 4 times in the last 6 years now, taking an offensive lineman in the first round, or 3 times in the last 5.
But anytime you're able to land an elite prospect, I don't care what position they play, it's a sexy pick. It may not be flashy. I still think it's a sexy pick to take Penei Sewell.
I'll tell you right now, I think Penei Sewell is one of those guys that in most drafts would probably be a top 1 or 2 pick.
Yeah.
This is just not most drafts.
Now, I did see a report that Miami was fielding a lot of calls for the number 6 spot to trade up, for teams to trade up to the number 6 spot. Do you think that Brad Holmes, what I believe to be smoke screens of not ruling out quarterback in this draft, might actually be working in the reason team? Because a lot of times teams are trading up to the top 10 to take one of the quarterbacks in the top 10. That's usually why teams trade into the top 10. Do you think that's what's going on here? Do you think that smoke screen's kind of working?
Yes and no.
I'm just hoping it would be trading with us and not with the team in front of us.
Right, but yes and no. I do and I don't. And the reason I say that is because, and to kind of piggyback off what you said, I don't care if it's with us or not, because if they trade up to get a quarterback ahead of us, that just means better skill position available to better player available to us at number 7.
You're not wrong.
No, just because I don't know how much people believe the Lions serious about taking quarterback. But yes, I'm kind of losing my train of thought here. But I also think that no. Let me start over. No, because I think it's more along the lines of, or it could be more along the lines of, let's say 4 quarterbacks go at the top of this draft. Well, now you got some elite level talent at 5 and 6. And that's where teams may be willing to go get a player that isn't a quarterback, but is top 3 talent in most years' draft, but they get it at that type of value at number 5 or number 6. And so that's where I'd say that not the smoke screen may just be irrelevant here, but it could be working. And teams may be trying to trade up to number 6 to go get a quarterback because maybe they do think the line is serious. But I still think that just because there's going to be such a run on quarterbacks in the top part of this draft here, that teams are going to see how much value is going to be available at 5 and 6 and go, oh shit, I need to go get me some of that. And they're gonna.
See, I'm a bit of a different opinion because of the fact that I think teams look at who we have at quarterback, Jared Goff, and look at the most recent memory we have of Goff is that John Wolford started over him in their playoff game.
He was hurt.
Goff was hurt. He was hurt for week 17.
But he was not healthy. He came in. He came in and looked in. He came in and was hobbled.
Wolford got hurt in the first quarter.
Dude was limping around. He didn't even look right. He was not 100%. He was running on maybe 65% in that game. He did not look like himself at all.
But what I'm saying is
straight up like Kirk Gibson rounding the bases after he hits a walk-off home run.
That's many GM's last memory of Jared Goff, and now they're like, oh, he's a starting quarterback for the Lions. There's no way they're sticking with him. And yeah.
But see, the Lions are making moves that tell you they are sticking with him. That's
they did extend him, didn't they?
Well, they restructured his contract that caused an extension. They can't just buy him out after 2 years now. It's going to cost you if you do. So they made moves that say he's sticking around for a while. So you're kind of talking out of both sides of your mouth if you're the Lions saying, oh, we're serious about a quarterback, but oh, hey, Jared Goff, here's some more money. That just doesn't make sense, and I think teams are going to see right through that for that reason. But again, they could still be looking at the Lions saying maybe they are a contender for a quarterback, and I do think the Lions legitimately are a contender for a quarterback. I'm not ruling that out in any way.
Yeah.
I just don't think they have to, and I don't really.
Oh, they don't have to at all.
And I really don't think I want them to at this point, especially after what's going to be available to them at number 7.
Oh, I'm in agreement. I just want teams to believe that we're going to.
Oh, I do too. But also, like, thinking about it, he does mention the possibility of the Lions trading back and still going big, and I do think that's entirely a possibility. I think there's a lot of teams that the Lions could trade back to. I mean, I can't remember whose mock draft it was, but had the Lions trading back to the Arizona Cardinals, I think, at 18. So Arizona could grab Jamar Chase at number 7, and the Lions ended up grabbing a linebacker at number 8 at 18. It wasn't Micah Parsons, even though Parsons was available. I thought that was kind of interesting. But either way, like, you know, there's options that the Lions could. I think with the run of quarterbacks at the top of this draft, it kind of opens the door a little bit for the Lions to trade back because there's going to be some high-level talent at those spots. And it's not necessarily going to be the players, the teams in that 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 range because they still feel that they're going to get good value based on the fact that there's so many guys left that they like. It's going to be teams in that 17, 18, 19 range that are going to say, hey, wait a minute. It's going to be a lot cheaper for us to move up to go get Jamar Chase at number 7 now than go grab the next year's top wide receiver at when we're going to have to move up to number 4 to get him next year. So teams are going to jump at that opportunity, and they're going to go get guys like that because they're available there and the value's there. Yeah. So, and I wouldn't hate the Lions doing that, and I would actually like to see them do that and move back and go grab them an offensive lineman or defensive lineman at that spot because that's where you do bring in the D lineman into the conversation in this draft, and there's still some high-level offensive linemen at, you know, in the mid to late teens in this draft as well. So, I love the philosophy of the Lions building from within and building out from there. Absolutely.
That's all I got on the topic.
All righty. All right, guys, that is going to close it out for this week. We thank you for listening. Follow us on Twitter at RealFanReport, and we'll catch you guys out next week. Thank you to Detroit Sports Podcast. Always thank you, Andrew, for joining me as well.
Yes, sir.
We hope you guys enjoy your week and stay safe. Have a good one. And
don't forget to pray to the lottery gods.
Yes, that as well. That's important. In fact, that should be top of mind. Thank you guys again. This has been the Fan Reporters. Bye, fans.
Do you understand the type of show this is going to be if we land at number 1?
Oh, my God. It's going to be the Cade Cunningham show.
I'm just going to spend an hour of a podcast just repeating Cade Cunningham over and over. That'd be the podcast, the entire show.
We got Cade Cunningham. We got Cade Cunningham. It's just going to be, all right. How many years does it take for us to win not 1, not 2, but 3 NBA titles?
All right, what I'm going to do, we're going to spell Cade Cunningham's name with previous NBA players, business players.
How many MVPs does Cade Cunningham win? How many All-Star games does he go to? Oh, man. It sure would be fun. All right, though. It's been the Fan Reporters. Bye, fans.
For fans.
We'll catch you guys next week. Have a good one. Peace out.
Peace.